All right, welcome to the Krug Show, everybody. Larry Krueger with you on the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show. Get the band going. There we go. And of course, we are in Arizona all week from Scottsdale, Arizona, courtesy of the New York Style Sausage Company, New York Style Italian Sausage Company. Often imitated, never equaled. And thanks to Vish Kumaran for joining us today on the Krug Show. What's up, Vish? Good to see you, man. How's things going?
Good to see you, Larry. I mean, everything is good. Just, wrapped up the week. It's nice to – Fridays are always really, really nice. As I've just adjusted to, getting out of college and getting into the workforce, I've learned to manage my energy a little bit better because sometimes when you get to Friday, you want to do so many things, and then you realize, damn, like work has me pretty tired on Friday evenings. So I've learned to balance, when I really, really use my energy on Friday evenings. And today I'm just home at my parents' house, kicking back and just spending some time with family. So looking forward to that this weekend.
Well, you got a haircut.
I did get a haircut.
As they say, you get your ears lowered.
Yeah, pretty much. I was in such dire need of a haircut. I'm working remote right now, so I don't have too much of a need to go into work. And then I had to go into the office a couple of times, and a couple of looks said enough. Like, yeah, I really need a haircut. So what do you think? How does it look?
Oh, it looks sharp, man. It looks sharp. I like it.
Thank you.
Now, I'm looking a little sunburned because I was sitting in the outfield today in Scottsdale at Talking Stick for Giants Rockies. Saw some fans out there. Who said, "Hey, Krug, what's going on?" Next thing I know, I'm sitting there drinking beers with people I don't know. Giants Niner fan says, "Larry's going to be late. It's beer weather in Scottsdale." Yeah, a couple guys were down there, and they're like, "Hey, Krug, what's going on, man?" We start rapping. Next thing you know, guys are buying me beers. We're out there on the berm.
What'd you get?
He got me a Miller Lite Tall Boy. So it was, I don't need anything fancy. I'm not a fancy guy. Let's go right into the Niners, though, because the big story in Ninerland, and there's a number of them that we want to get to, but we're gonna establish a pace. We're gonna keep the pace crackling here on the Krug Show today. Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. He had his surgery, and it sounds like. Sounds like Brock is not going to need the extensive elbow reconstructive surgery that would make him out for all of next year. But to say that he underwent successful surgery, I don't know. Do you think that's even accurate? He's not going to begin throwing for 3 months. I guess it's successful in that it didn't need to be a full-blown Tommy John elbow reconstruction. But as far as good news, okay, that's good news, but we really still don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be next year the same quarterback he was last year. And so for me, as much as I want to say, yeah, way to go. Yeah, Brock Purdy's, he doesn't need the Tommy John. He doesn't need the full elbow reconstruction. We don't know if he's going to be diminished. We don't know if he's going to have the same zip on his passes, the same touch, the same accuracy. We don't know. There's just and then now, so 3 months from today he can begin throwing. So that's going to be June 10th. And then they say 3 months after that, Vish, he's going to be, potentially able to come back. So that's September 10th. So that's right around week 1, week 2. So I think it's kind of almost a foregone conclusion that Trey Lance will be starting at quarterback for the 49ers in week 1, unless there's there's more transactions involving 49er quarterbacks coming or going. I think the Niners have to be prepared to start this year with Trey Lance. How does today's news kind of change your thoughts on their whole quarterback room going into next year?
It doesn't change it much in the sense that, they still need to get, I think a lot of people thought, this puts the Niners out of the Niner quarterback conversation. No, they still need 2 more quarterbacks because they need to be able to divvy up the reps properly during training camp. And you don't want Trey Lance taking extra reps either, because as we know, I guess too many reps was really the cause, right, of the whole arm fatigue gate. But there was something right with him throwing the ball too much, and it was causing some discomfort for him with his arm. So they're gonna need two more quarterbacks regardless. I agree with you from the standpoint that this was just the first step of this offseason. We're still a long way from saying, hey, Brock Purdy's going to be back and he's going to be starting for the 49ers. Still a lot needs to happen, but this was kind of the first step of good news. It's the news that John Lynch said they were hoping and praying for at the combine, right? The fact that they were able to go in and see that they only needed to do the UCL reconstruction and they didn't need to do it with the hybrid or the full-on Tommy John, which is, I think, fantastic news. And let's hope that Brock Purdy's elbow comes up and is ready to go for week 1 or week 2 or whenever that time period is. But I agree with you. I think in a lot of ways, this does put, the pressure, but also the opportunity for Trey Lance, because it looks like this offseason is going to be opened up for him to reclaim the job that technically he never lost. He just got hurt. So he can maybe do to Brock Purdy what Brock Purdy, I think a lot of us think Brock Purdy did to him.
And, who knows what Trey's going to do. Trey could take the ball and run with it and hit the ground running.
Right.
How do you think, it's easy to say, well, based on what we saw last year, Brock is more advanced than Trey. But now we kind of know that the Niners are likely to play week 1 with Trey Lance and not Brock Purdy. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be one of those things where Trey, it doesn't matter how Trey plays, and the Niners will go back to Brock based on the fact that he ran the table at the end of the year, won 2 playoff games? Or is there a level in your mind that Trey could play at the beginning of next year that would make the 49ers say, you know what? We like Brock, but we're going with Trey?
That's a really complicated question, especially to ask right now. We're so far away from knowing exactly, because even Trey, right? He's just ramping up. He's just starting to throw. We're still a little bit away from him being healthy, but projecting all the way down there, I do think that if the 49ers, start the season and let's say Brock Purdy is not fully healthy week 1 and they, activate him like week 2, week 3, but they're 3-0 and everything is looking good. And maybe, Trey Lance isn't absolutely lighting it up and killing it. But I think it's completely reasonable to see like him improving through those 3 weeks. I don't know how well he's going to play. I'm not going to give a projection of that. Let's see how he recovers in this offseason goes. But I do think it's a fair projection to say now in those 3 weeks, like week 1 might be so-so, but week 3 might be really good. There could be an improvement, a steady improvement that we're seeing through then. I think if we're at that point, especially given the nature of the injury and given that Brock Purdy wouldn't have gone through the offseason, I do think, Larry, that there's a chance Trey Lance could, maintain a stronghold on the job. It's the same situation that Purdy kind of walked into, where they have nobody else. You get the shot. They're playing a little bit with house money. And if you play great, you can take hold of the job. And Purdy did that, and then he got hurt. I feel like Lance has the same exact opportunity. I don't think 7 games buys Brock Purdy the equity to come back and start, even if Trey Lance is out there absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think very highly of Brock, but it's very difficult. Difficult's the wrong word. It's very to me, you never look away from the bird in the hand.
Right.
If you have a quarterback that you're winning games with, that's playing well, you don't switch jockeys. You don't switch. And I'm a big believer in Brock. But if Trey comes out and plays great in week 1, he's getting a start in week 2. And if he plays great in week 2, he's getting the start in week 3. And if he plays great in week 3, you see what I'm saying? If he continues to play great, I think that he keeps the job. So the same way Brock was given an opportunity, Trey has been given an opportunity. That all being said, does today's news of the surgery for Brock not being a 12-month thing or a 9-month thing, that we're thinking it's more along 6 months. Does that change your opinion about the third quarterback in that room? Like, in my opinion, I think that they now have flexibility. If they like a veteran, go for it. But if you prefer a rookie, you can go that route and spend your cap savings that you were going to spend on Baker Mayfield or Andy Dalton or somebody else, and go spend it on a defensive end or a corner or a safety. What is this news today make you more likely to want? First of all, I never even really asked you, do you prefer a veteran or do you prefer a rookie as that third quarterback? And does this news today change that?
I want both. So to answer the first part of your question, I want both. Have them compete. Add competition to that third quarterback room. The exact way Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld competed. Get another, marginal kind of fringe backup, can maybe play in a pinch, but really a backup type guy that's very, very cheap, whoever that is on the market, whether it's a Jared Stidham, somebody like that, and draft a quarterback in the 6th round, 7th round, whoever you like, draft him. And you can always stash one of those guys on the practice squad and let them compete for the third quarterback job. And plus, they need 3 quarterbacks, I think, in camp, because Brock Purdy is not looked at as a quarterback in camp, and they need 3 healthy arms to divvy up the reps. So I'd assume they have to do both. So that answers the first part of your question. The second part of your question in regards to did I think the plan changed? I did not, because I was never necessarily a fan of getting Baker Mayfield, because I think Baker Mayfield would cost $8 to $10 million. And I didn't think that, given where the 49ers are with the quarterback room, I didn't think it made sense to spend money on the quarterback room unless they were spending on a proven commodity. And to me, Baker Mayfield, I actually like Baker Mayfield. I like Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma. I did not think he should have been the first pick in the draft, but I think there's some talent to Baker Mayfield that's pretty good, and he could still succeed. But at the same time, Larry, I don't think the 49ers need Baker Mayfield. I was pretty contented with going into the season with these 2 young guys and getting the cheapest possible veteran to back them up and draft a different guy. So I don't think the plan necessarily changes. I was just always confused why this was never the plan, regardless of what happened to Brock's surgery, because I always felt like with Trey Lance, like, there was no reason to bail on whatever plan you had with him. Whatever plan you had with him that never came into fruition last year, you didn't get off that plan because Trey Lance sucked, or Trey Lance did something off the field, or Trey Lance was whoever you didn't want him to be. He just broke his ankle. And now you're coming back to a situation where if Brock Purdy was healthy, Larry, I would have completely understood why Trey Lance is the backup, because Brock Purdy was that awesome down the stretch of the season. But since he wasn't, I always felt like, why not just resume your plan with Trey Lance, because that's the cheapest and best value option for the 49ers. They were the ones talking about, well, John Lynch was saying during the combine, right? You and I had a long talk about all his different answers regarding Trey Lance. But to me, this should have always been the plan. And I hope now that they think Brock Purdy is going to be back in 6 months and ready to go and possibly ready to start at some point next year, they stick with that plan, because I think financially that's easily the most responsible and the best value they have at the quarterback position, and the most potential.
Who is John Lynch calls Vish Kumaran? Okay. It's quite the scenario. He says, Vish's parents, is Vish there? Can I talk to him? And then they say, yes, he's right here, John. And they hand you the phone. And he says, Vish, love your work on the Krug show. Love your channel. You guys are blowing it up. I think you're wise. You've got great wisdom. I'm just bullshitting. If John Lynch comes to you and says, Vish, who is your number one choice to be the third quarterback? Because I think we're both of the same mindset that third quarterback is not going to be just a throwaway guy anymore. Heck, there were people, Vish, in July that when I said I like Brock Purdy, were like, if they got to lean on the third string quarterback, they're cooked anyway, right? And that's kind of a prevailing wisdom. And I know around football, and then maybe this year with the Niners changed the thinking, and maybe the NFL is going to change their rules to accommodate a third quarterback being on the roster. That all being said, we don't have any definitive answers on that yet. Who would you say is your number one choice. You can have anybody, veteran. You can make a trade, rookie, anything. Who is, you got Brock, you got Trey. Who's your I? And to me, it really does matter about who the other guys are. Every room's different. Who's the ideal third quarterback to put in that room in your mind?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go draft. Personally, I don't want them to use one of the third round or fourth round or fifth round picks on a quarterback. Personally, Krug, I think there's other needs, and there's a lot of depth in a lot of different positions that I would love the 49ers to just stock up on a lot of young players that could possibly develop into starters, maybe not, but I would love to stock up depth. So if you're talking 6th, 7th round there, and I'd prefer to go to the draft because of the cheaper option, obviously, especially because I don't know about you, Larry, but I think the idea that the Heineke's and the Gardner Minshews and the Andy Daltons and the Baker Mayfields are going to be cheap, I'm not necessarily buying that of right now. I think those guys are going to be closer to 10 million than they are to be 5 million. That's just my guess, just based on the spot track projections and all of that. And I don't want the 49ers to spend that much money on a quarterback. Maximum, I'm hoping, is the same $2.5 million guaranteed they spent on Nate Sudfeld. And every one of the guys I just named is, at least $5-6 million better than Nate Sudfeld. So while we're on this, I actually, and this is a guy I like, the UCLA quarterback,
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Right. Tons of starts in college. I thought he improved significantly. I remember watching him just on college football a couple years back and didn't think he was very good, to be honest. Then I was just watching him randomly during draft time right now, and I thought he was not too bad. He's pretty athletic. He moves well. He has a really quick release. He's not a very accurate thrower down the field, but he's quite accurate short, intermediate. He has tons of starts, tons of experience. And then I was listening to Jordan Palmer do an interview with Rich Eisen, and he singled out DTR as a guy that he felt was going to surprise people because of the intangibles. He said the maturity and all of that is off the charts with DTR. And he said his arm is going to catch up, is going to surprise some people on how strong it is. And so when I heard those two things, Larry, I thought that, kind of fits the mold of what the 49ers are looking for. They did meet with him, and it seems like there is some interest there. So if we're talking about, Larry, I don't know if they can draft him and he would actually come in, actually consume this offense and win the third quarterback job. That's a different story. But a guy I would like to get the opportunity to compete for it would be him. He would be a guy I would like for them to take in the later rounds. And I think it's because he has the potential to be like a Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Huntley kind of player. And I think having the potential to be a fringe starter like that, Larry, in your third quarterback is huge, because the guy has to have some talent, right? He can't just be a locker room guy, because I think both of us agree there might be a need for this guy to play. So he has to have some level of starter talent. And this guy does with his athleticism and arm strength. It's going to give him a chance to maybe be again, Tyler Huntley, Tyrod Taylor type player.
I'll say rookie over veteran, because I really think they need to spend their money on other areas. And then I'll say I'm going to go with, I agree we're kind of thinking along the same lines in that we both are going rookie, but we're also both not going day one or day two. And we're really even not talking about an early day three guy.
No.
We're both talking about a late day three guy. I think the two guys that I would choose from, and I like Clayton Tune. I really do. And I like Jake Hayner. I've seen some good things about, Jaron Hall and Tanner McKee and Max Duggan. But I think for me,
Stetson Bennett.
I want one of two things. Okay. I want somebody who can play right away. But at the same time, I don't want Shanahan to pick that player over Trey Lance. So I don't want somebody who can really step in front of Trey. I want somebody who's definitively behind Purdy and Trey. So I'm choosing between either Stetson Bennett from Georgia, who's, underwhelming. I don't think if he can make all the throws. He's 5'11", but
Did you watch him throw at the combine, Krug?
Yeah, he looked great, didn't he? I
He
mean,
threw
Vish, he
he
dropped
spun
it
it at
in
the
the bucket.
combine.
I
Yeah.
mean, just absolutely, he made some perfect throws. I mean,
He
some
looked
really perfect
unbelievable
throws.
throwing it, and
Yeah,
he looked like he had. I did not expect. I'm not going to pretend like I sit here and watch a lot of Stetson Bennett. I've watched a lot of Georgia over the past couple of years, thanks to every single player ever to even play one snap on their defense being projected to go in the first or second round over the last 2 years. But I didn't expect him to throw that way. Like, it wasn't just the deep ball, right? The deep ball was outstanding, dropped it in the bucket, all three. Those were highlight throws. But even the outs, everything, he was throwing with pace, he was throwing with velocity. He looked good. He looked
he
good
did.
throwing the ball in the combine.
He made himself some money. There's no doubt. He looked good. Um, and he's smallish, but he's played on the national championship winning
Right.
team. He's played in a conference where you've got the greatest defensive speed in all of college football. Football we know is important to him. The guy absolutely was a phenomenal leader for the Georgia Bulldog offense.
Right.
But I'm going to go either with Stetson Bennett, who is more polished and ready to go, but also low upside. I think my guess is Stetson Bennett's going to be a 6th round pick.
Okay.
If you said what round, I say round 6. I think the Niners have other needs that are more pressing. And I want, if Brock's going to be healthy in September, and you have Trey Lance, I want one of those two guys to play. So as much as I like Clayton Tune and some of these other guys, I want somebody a little bit further down the list. So I'm going to say either Stetson Bennett, and I'm back on Malik Cunningham from Louisville. And I just love the way Cunningham runs. I love the way he still has a good arm. I like the way he threw the ball in Indy. I've had a number of different quarterback people tell me, people that have evaluated it said, he's not an NFL quarterback. But to me, there's zip on his passes. You have to account for him in the run game. He's dynamic. He's truly a dynamic mover. And I just think that, the Niners offensive line is not the best. Now you're going to be replacing 2 of the 5 starters. And I don't want Kyle Shanahan to put this third quarterback in over Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. And I think there's a chance if you have DTR or Stetson Bennett or Clayton Tune or Max Duggan, somebody like that, there's a chance that if Trey struggled early and Brock wasn't ready, that Shanahan would put that other player in. I don't want that to happen.
Because they played so much, you're basically saying?
Yeah, or maybe they played well in a brief sample size in the preseason or in practice. I want there to be a clear delineation between 1 and 2, 2 and 1, as far as Brock and Trey are 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. And this third guy is not like, well, he could be a 2. He could. No, I don't want any debate. I want the third guy to be the third guy. And that's why I like either Bennett or Cunningham. I guess I would go with Bennett if I felt like I needed that guy to start games and win games. But now with Purdy being healthy, I don't really think the third guy's got to start games and win games. I think the third guy's got to be able to come in if the first 2 guys aren't there and try to salvage something. And I like the high level arm strength and movement ability of Malik Cunningham. So I'm going to say the Niners now with the compensatory selections have 4 7th round picks. In my ideal world, they're bypassing the veterans and they're drafting Malik Cunningham with maybe that last 7th round pick, because I think he's going to be there. I think he's probably headed towards undrafted free agent status. And
I haven't studied him, so I don't know.
And I would probably take him with my last 7th round pick. There's other guys I like. Aiden O'Connell comes out of a good offense. Adrian Martinez is a good athlete. I like Tanner McKee, but some of those guys I think go earlier. But in the round 7, I think you're looking at Stetson Bennett, maybe DTR, maybe Malik Cunningham. Maybe I'm round 6, round 7, and I just think I'd rather wait and invest in other positions and go grab Malik Cunningham, at the very end of the 7th round, and then just coach him up. And if you got to go to him, at least you have a guy who can really, really run. I mean, we're not talking about he's just mobile. This guy will burn you if you give him an avenue, he'll burn you for a 60, 70-yard run. I mean, he's dynamic. He's a dynamic runner. He's not Lamar, but he's a dynamic runner.
So I think you and I completely aligned there, right, in the logic. We're thinking a 6th, 7th round pick, a DTR, Stetson Bennett. We're right there. But there's something I'm not letting go, because I do got to ask you this. Why should we be worried about a late round pick beating out Trey Lance? I don't think that should be necessarily a thing that should be thought about here. I think it's an indictment on Trey Lance, in fact, if Shanahan believes a DTR or somebody like that can come in right away and outplay him. He's played 2 years in the system. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. I don't think that he needs to be coddled or protected necessarily in that way. And all he's asked for is a chance to compete. He hasn't asked for that. But I don't understand because he would be it's not just Larry that, he's more talented than whoever would be coming in with the 6th or 7th round pick. He's also way ahead because he's played in the system for 2 years, and he was the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he was projected to be a starter the year before. I would not worry about his feelings at all. If I thought a guy could start with the 6th, 7th round pick, like a DTR, like a Stetson Bennett, especially DTR, if I think he has talent to start, I'm taking that 100% out of 100%. I'm not worried if he comes in and outplays Trey Lance. That's on Trey Lance to make sure that he outplays DTR or whomever. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. He has been in this system for 2 different years. He was about to start the year before. This is his opportunity. He has to take advantage and capitalize.
No question. Eric Hernandez says, Larry, sunscreen is important. Thank you. Thank you. One Bad Niner makes a donation. He says, bring back Eddie D. He wanted to win and did what it took. Happy with bargain shopping, destined to be the Lakers before they got Phil Jackson. All that talent, but couldn't bring it together. I mean, it's not about Eddie D. What you're really saying is bring back the era of Eddie D that was pre-cap, when you had, Michael Carter. Oh, yeah, and you had Jim Burt. And you had Fred Smart. You had 3 starting caliber nose guards on one team, and they just kept, anybody who come on down, why not? The more the merrier. What you're really saying is you like the Niners' dominance pre-cap.
Only you would think of the good old days and then proceed to name 3 nose guards. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
See, without the salary cap, instead of talking about hey, 3 quarterbacks or 3 receivers or whatever, hey, without the salary cap, we could keep 3 nose guards. I love it.
This is kind of interesting, too, from Third String All-Pro. He says, Trey has a lot more to prove than just play good. He needs to prove he's a leader among men and not worry about being Mr. Nice Guy. You don't get that skill overnight. Purdy has that respect already. Okay, fair enough. But I'll say this. I don't think Trey lacks leadership capabilities at all. At all. I think he's a very good leader. I think there's a lot of guys in that room that will follow him. To me, it's more about efficiency. What is this offense? This is a run-dominant offense that requires the quarterback to make certain select efficient throws at different points in the game. And guess what? That means that if you have a layup pass underneath, you got to hit it. So as far as why, I heard what you're saying about Trey. I just don't want Shanahan. I don't want to give Shanahan a 3rd quarterback that, let's just stay with door 1 and door 2. You know what I mean? Let's not worry about what's behind door 3. I want there to be a 3rd door, but I don't want him fascinating on what's behind that door. And I sure as hell don't want him going, hey, you know what? DTR, Stetson Bennett, these guys are pretty polished. They're more ready to play now than Trey. No. If Trey's not ready to play now, that going forward is your fault. You know what I mean? You can't. This is a young quarterback that's been in your system and your coaching staff. If he's not ready to go and you're going to pass it off to Stetson Bennett or DTR because of, reps at UCLA, no, I don't want that. So sometimes you got to give coaches that like options, fewer options. And in this case, I want a quarterback, a decent third string quarterback, but I don't want anybody that Shanahan could reason and say, you know what? We just need to go with Stetson Bennett right now because he's just more polished. He's played more football. No, what you need to do is give Trey Lance field time. If it's not Brock Purdy, it needs to be Trey Lance. It cannot be door number 3. Would you agree with that? Or do you kind of like, you're a little bit, have a different mindset?
No, I agree with you. I think it's always been that way to me this entire offseason. And I don't understand this question about his leadership. They said that they've been clear that that was one of the reasons why they've drafted him. And it feels like, he's given them zero reason to doubt that about him. He seems to get along with his teammates really, really well. I think they will follow him too. He just hasn't had the opportunity to spend that much time with them on the field. Now, to the second part of your point, I know you just remade it. I still disagree with that, Larry. Even if you give him options, whatever, I would think if a DTR or a Stetson Bennett came in and beat a Trey Lance in training camp, I would think you drafted the wrong quarterback. That would be the final conclusion for me. That's to me, Trey Lance should beat them out. It shouldn't even be an issue for him to beat them out. He's more talented than them. The 49ers have way more equity invested in him, and he has had now 2 seasons in the NFL and 2 seasons within the system. And I personally don't think there's any way they will beat him out. If there's a way that they beat him out, then I'm completely wrong about Trey Lance. Right now, I'm hoping I'm not, and I think I'm not. And so I don't even think that should even I understand the point you're making. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do agree with your underlying overall point, which is that, hey, this should just be Trey Lance's opportunity. And I agree with you. It's kind of, the great sea has parted. This is his opportunity, and we'll get to see what he's going to do with it. Like, this is his chance. He's going to be the quarterback again the entire offseason, and he can really put a stamp on this roster. And people are saying, well, how is he going to do that, right? Someone tweeted at me, how is he going to prove that against the number 1 defense in training camp? Larry, when he's the quarterback of this team, and we know it, we'll know it by how his teammates are talking about him and how Kyle Shanahan is talking about him. Nothing to do with, whether he's 8 for 8 in the training camp practice or 9 for 12 or 10 for 13, whatever the spreadsheets, the stats, whatever they say, they're a nice way to track if a guy's playing well, but it's not necessarily completely indicative of what Shanahan is seeing of whether the guy is actually playing well. And so if he comes out and kills it in camp, we'll not only see it, but we'll feel it. We'll hear it. Everybody will be talking about it, and that'll be the buzz. And I'm hoping he does that. I think he's got a golden opportunity to do it. And everything we seem to see about him recently is that he seems ready and motivated to take this opportunity and seize it and do exactly what Brock Purdy did.
A lot of interesting notes from around the NFL today. The Vikings cut the corner Cam Dantzler. Devin McCourty retired from the Patriots. A lot of interesting stuff. The Broncos cut running back Chase Edmonds. The Steelers cut cornerback William Jackson, who I really like. The Broncos signed cornerback Ronald Darby. There's a report the Chargers and Cowboys both want Bobby Wagner. And then the biggest story, the Cardinals released the edge rusher Marcus Golden, who I've always liked, saves them about $3 million on the cap. But the big story on this Friday, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport had it first. The Panthers acquire the number 1 overall pick from the Chicago Bears in exchange for DJ Moore, the wide receiver DJ Moore, the 9th overall pick in this draft, a 2023 second round pick, so their first and second round pick in this draft, a 2024 first round pick, so next year's number 1, and a 2025 second round pick. So DJ Moore, DJ Moore, they move, basically the Bears move from 1 to 9, and for it pick up DJ Moore, a 2023 second, a 2024 first, and a 2025 second. What do you think of the trade? It's a bonanza. And who do you think the Panthers want? And their brand new head coach, Frank Reich, who does he want? Is it CJ Stroud? Is it Bryce Young? Is it the Kentucky kid? Who do you think the Panthers want?
Yeah, I tweeted right after the trade happened. I think this is a CJ Stroud trade, 100%. Um, I don't think you can trade that much. I wouldn't personally, I don't think CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in this draft. I think it's Bryce Young. But I don't think you can trade that much to go get him when that size is just such a anomaly. I understand that he's such a good football player, but the size is just such an anomaly. I thought it was a crazy trade, to be honest with you, Larry. I didn't think any of these quarterbacks were worthy of that kind of trade. I felt like there was enough questions with all of them that I would kind of just wait and see which one fell. Right, Richardson is maybe the freakiest quarterback we've seen since Josh Allen, but there's some issues with his accuracy playing from the pocket, but the athleticism's off the charts. There's an instinctive feel in terms of where people are in the pocket and his ability to manipulate the pocket. And when it's right, he shows the ability to even process it late in the down and find the right spot to go with the ball and throw it accurately. But there's questions. Levis, to me, his inside the pocket mobility is a question to me. And obviously all the turnovers, he was rather turnover prone at Kentucky. Stroud, it was all clean pockets at Ohio State, and I felt like he didn't necessarily handle pressure that well. And I felt like even in clean pockets, he didn't step up that well. Now, it was better in 2021 how he managed the pocket and all of that. But for a quarterback, you're giving up that much to take number one overall, I don't know. And then Young, to me, is the best quarterback in the draft. Everything about his game is off the charts. It's just that he is the littlest guy we're seeing. And so I think it's kind of a crazy trade. I'm shocked they made it. And I think the Bears got an absolute haul. I think DJ Moore, I think the Bears were trying to trade a first round pick for DJ Moore a little whiles back, or somebody was. And so that was a nice deal for them. They got their version of the first round pick for Stephon Diggs or the first round pick for AJ Brown, so Justin Fields could make his jump. And then I thought the haul was great. And to stay at 9, Larry, especially in a draft where after the top 15 guys, it does the difference between number 16 and number 50 is not that drastic. You want to stay in this top 15 when you're making a draft because you still want to get a premium, big time football player. And that's where I think the Bears absolutely killed it. And I'm kind of pissed off because I don't like when the Bears do good things, but they did a very good thing here.
Yeah, I like it as well. DJ Moore could be a borderline number 1 receiver. I think he's been underutilized in Carolina. Here's the 2 questions I have, though. Are the Panthers, they kind of told everybody as soon as they made this trade that they may be willing to trade down from 1. So is it, do they want Bryce Young? Do they want CJ Stroud? I think if they're willing to trade down from 1, I think they may want Will Levis.
Yeah, if that's true, that would be the case. I'm not going to believe that. I don't think you make the move to 1 without having a quarterback in mind. Now, the 49ers made the move a couple of years ago where they were still not exactly 100% sure on who they were going to take. They liked a few different guys there. But in the history of the NFL, when you make a move like this, a franchise-changing move, you know who you're making that move up. You're not making that move up for a spot. You're not making that move up for an asset. You're making that move for a player. And so they should, to me, if that report is true, Larry, then I think it's just horrible management of this situation by the Panthers because you should have the quarterback you have in mind. And when you make the move up, you should have such conviction in the guy that you're willing to take him right there. So it could be Levis. That's a really, really interesting point. But if it is and they're trying to trade back down, I think it's a very, very bizarre thing for Carolina to do. But we've seen, over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 years, teams are willing to be a little more outside the box with how they handle the quarterback position. Maybe they're mustering up the next genius move. I would say no. I think they have who they're taking in mind. And my best guess is in terms of fit, everything, it's CJ Stroud.
It's interesting. I think it's a genius move by Carolina because I think Carolina knows that the Texans sit at 2 and that they probably have a preference. And if they want, Bryce Young, then maybe you could squeeze something out of them without really moving at all. Then you've got Indianapolis sitting at 4, and they may want to jump up. And I think if I'm Carolina, I think I trade back to 4 and take Levis right there. I really believe that. I think
So you think it's Levis? That's why they want to
I do.
trade back.
I think it's
Okay.
Levis. And then I think I really know who the Bears want as well. Who do you think the Bears want at 9?
Whoever is there of those edge rushers, those top of the draft edge rushers. So I think Will
Tyree
Anderson will most
Wilson or
likely be
somebody like
gone.
that.
Tyree Wilson will probably be gone too, but the third guy, the Clemson guy, one of those guys up in there, I'm assuming, and possibly Jalen Carter, right? That's the guy we don't know. I'm trying to really imagine what's going on with this situation and how that's going to affect his draft stock, right? The only time I can see a number one, I remember like a consensus number one player in the draft having a character concern that dropped them was Laramie Tunsil. Remember, he had the gas mask bong and he dropped the 13 on the day of the draft, right? The Ravens took Ronnie Stanley over him. And Laramie Tunsil, he's one of the 5, 6, 7 best tackles in football now. But when he was coming out, especially in that draft, it looked like a no-brainer that Laramie Tunsil was the best player in that draft. And so I think this is pretty similar. Obviously, I don't know how what he did is weighed. I don't know, what's the consequences even for what he did and all of that. But I don't know where he's going to fall, Larry. And if you're the Bears and you're at 9 and you've already accumulated these extra assets, do you take a chance on a guy that's easily the most talented player to come out of the Georgia defensive line in the last 2 years? And we're talking about a defensive line that just sent Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, and Trayvon Walker to the NFL, and they were all drafted in the first 30 picks in the draft.
Let me tell you what I think Ryan Poles has cooking here. Ryan Poles, the young GM of the Chicago Bears. I think he trades down from 1 to 9 because they didn't want to take the quarterback. They have their quarterback. They have their quarterback. It's Justin Fields. They needed to do 2 things. When you have your franchise quarterback, you need to do 2 things. Get him some weapons. Last year they traded for Claypool. Today they trade for DJ Moore, and protect him. And I think the Bears at 9 are going to take the Northwestern offensive tackle, Pete Skoronski.
Really?
Yes. I think they want Skoronski. He's a Chicago, he played at Northwestern. I think he's the best.
Is he a guard or a tackle?
He's a tackle. He's a
tackle to you?
And there's some people speculating Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State, but I think this move is about Pete Skoronski. And now you can look your fan. Last year, you've done all the speculation about what you're going to do with the quarterback. Now you got Justin Fields. Now there's no doubt you're going to stay with Fields. And now you're giving Fields a couple receivers in Claypool and Moore. And now he's getting a blue chip, pass protector in Skoronski. I think that's what that's about. And I think it may impact the Niners. Not that the Niners are bringing back McGlinchey either way, because I don't believe that. But McGlinchey to the Bears in free agency may not be happening if I'm reading this right. If the Bears traded from 1 to 9 and they're going to take Pete Skoronski, I doubt they're going to invest big money in free agency and Mike McGlinchey. I still think McGlinchey's going to get paid beyond the Niners means, and he'll leave day one. But he may not be going to Chicago after all.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Interesting that you went Skoronski. I have not watched him, so I don't know, but I did see some people that I do know evaluate offensive linemen very well were questioning his overall outlook as a tackle in the NFL. But I'd also trust your word on it if you look at him as a tackle. I know the Oklahoma guy, a few guys that I know are very, very good at evaluating offensive linemen really like him and his potential as a pass protector. I don't know how you look at him, Larry, but I do think what you said logically lines up, right? In terms of, you're right. If you're going back to 9, you already got your number 1 receiver. Go shore up your offensive lineman now. Maybe sign an offensive lineman. It won't be Mike McGlinchey. I agree with you if they go tackle at 9, but it will be maybe somebody on the interior. And now you have all of a sudden a very young and explosive and talented offense, because Claypool, DJ Moore, and Darnell Mooney is actually a very, very decent trio. And we can't forget good old Dante Pettis, who's still hiding at the bottom of that depth chart. So, they got a stud there. I'm messing, but yeah.
Ern says, here's $1.99. He says, a number 3 quarterback who can take the number 2 job but wins games? ? Question mark? How?
How? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that. First of all, I think you need a quarterback that's an improving quarterback, not just somebody playing out the string. So but I don't want that number 3 quarterback to play over Trey Lance, no matter how raw or whatever struggles Trey may have. If Trey's ready to roll, I want Trey to see the field. So I don't want to hear this. Well, Stetson kind of no. You invested 3 number
See,
ones in Trey, or 2 number ones, however you want to slice that. You invested a boatload in Trey Lance. I don't want to hear excuses about why he's not playing if he's healthy. I want to see him on the field and I want to see him playing.
so in that scenario, though, you would put it on the 49ers? Because in that scenario, I'd put it on Trey Lance.
But I mean, they drafted Vish, a really raw player. It's somewhat on them to develop that raw player.
I agree with that. But if that raw player is not good enough to, after 2 years in a system, to beat out a 6th round, 7th round quarterback in training camp, I see no. First of all, I don't see them outperforming Trey Lance, so we're clear there. But let's say they do, Larry. I don't see how that. I think then you just drafted the wrong player. Sixth round pick is outplaying you in camp. He's the 3rd overall pick in the draft. He's been in the system for 2 years.
Well, first of all, if you did draft the wrong player, Vish, Stetson Bennett, DTR ain't saving
are
your
not
ass.
helping you. Yeah, no,
you're not saved. Hey, what do you think of this one from our good buddy CJ Gray? He says Lamar Jackson deal is a non-starter. He simply costs too much. There was an awful lot of people. I talked to Jesse Naylor today. He had speculated on Twitter about a trade involving Bosa. And of course, anytime you throw Bosa out there, Niner fans are going to rise up and crush. And I'm sure Jesse got crushed on that.
The only tradable Niners star, Krug, just so you know, the only one people like trading is Debo. And that's the one they'll trade by themselves. You don't even need to worry about it. They'll be like, hey, why don't we just throw Debo in there? But the rest of them, you suggest even trading any of them, it's over.
Yeah. But what do you think? Is there any scenario that you could envision that Lamar makes sense for the Niners?
No. I think what Jesse laid out, if we are talking in an ideal world, is like awesome, but I just don't see the scenario with what they are building and what their long-term philosophy is and what their plan is, that it makes sense. In fact, I've never seen a scenario beyond Trey Lance starting that's made sense for them, just in terms of how they want to financially divvy up everything, and in terms of how they want to spend money, how they want to divvy up the money within the roster. Excuse me, I've repeated myself twice now, but yeah, how they want to do that. And so I just can't see it making much sense, Larry. I do think it's a better fit than a lot of people think, right? We did a video on my channel, right? That I said that Lamar was a system fit, and I noticed you posted it. And then there were a couple people saying in the comments, like, how is this a system fit? Blah, 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 blah. And, system fit is a really, really funny thing, right? Because first, the Niners ran all of those different run plays, right? Counter bash, right? Because that's the one everybody knows. Counter bash. That's the play Trey Lance got hurt. The Ravens run that same exact run play. So they do run the same run plays. And then in the pass game, Lamar is actually a really, really easy fit. The reason I bring up system fit, and it's really funny to me, Larry, not to get off the point here with Lamar, but just to bring up this last thing with system fit, it's really funny to me because nobody ever talks about system fit with one Jimmy Garoppolo in the Shanahan offense. But wouldn't you agree that under center play action, nakeds, bootlegs, they are historical staples of Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, wide zone with under center play action, bootlegs, nakeds. Like, if we're going to put that offense in the most Vegas generalities, we would describe it with that. And two of those things were eliminated with Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense. They did not. They reduced the under center play action stuff heavily because he was not good at it. And he's not athletic enough to consistently do the boots and all the nakeds and all of that. It all came back with Brock Purdy, and it was much more there with Brock Purdy because he's just way better in play action. But it didn't exist with Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I do think Lamar's a system fit, right? So like this idea that he isn't a system fit, the previous quarterback wasn't even a system fit, and we saw Shanahan was able to make a system that acquiesces. So even if you don't want to trust me that the Ravens run some run plays and it works, or that the Lamar is capable of executing a lot of the basic Niners, staple pass concepts and pass plays, because he is better from the pocket than any of these people want to admit, and he's way better. He played in a very efficient timing and precision placed offense in college for Bobby Petrino, and he was doing all the under center play action stuff and all that. Even if you don't want to admit that, Shanahan has proven that he can adjust the system for a quarterback, because he did that for Garoppolo, who is not a system fit for him. So I do think it's a fit, but I think ultimately, Larry, I know I went over long and I just I beat around the bush about 8 different times there. I'm realizing, half the things I said there were completely irrelevant to this point, but I'm here now at the point, and the point is that I just don't think with philosophically where the 49ers are, that this makes sense for them at all.
Couple more minutes with the great Vish. We have got close to 400 people in the room. We're having a blow up Friday cast today, live stream. But special thanks to the sponsor of today's show, what you see on the bottom of the scroll, New York style Italian sausage, phenomenal product. Whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, New York style Italian sausage, often imitated, never equaled. Make sure you check them out at NewYorkStyleSausage.com. And of course, we are always brought to you by our title sponsor, and that is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. Pig and a Pickle, 341 Corte Madera Town Center in Corte Madera. And they're also in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. in Corte Madera. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Get the brisket chili. You're going to love the brisket chili. And make sure you try those potato chips cooked in beef fat. There may not be a better potato chip anywhere than the Pig and a Pickle, potato chip cooked in beef fat. A tremendous chip. All right. What is in your mind? Once again, we're going back to John Lynch. He's calling the house. He's asking for Vish. The number one need of this offseason. We've talked a lot about the quarterback, but that's because it's the quarterback. I think both of us would agree that quarterback is not the Niners' number one need. But what is the thing that you would say, man, they better change this up or they ain't going to the Super Bowl no matter who's quarterbacking? What's the number one need for this 49er team this offseason in the mind of Vish?
Size in the defensive line.
Defensive tackle, you're saying, or defensive end with size?
Size, yeah. Just add some more power there, add some more girth. I'm with you, Larry, on this one. I think you also feel that it's the number one need, right?
I think the number one need is defensive tackle.
Yeah, okay, so we're on the same page.
Defensive tackle, yep.
Right, defensive tackle. Where I think it's kind of funny is I don't know if this is even though it's the number one need, I don't know if it's the number one thing they have to spend on. If that makes sense. Okay. I do think it's the number one need, but I don't think their most expensive player they got this offseason needs to be a defensive tackle, or their first draft pick needs to be used on a defensive tackle, if that makes sense. But they do need to find some depth and some size there and get it. I think that, the most money should be spent on an edge rusher. There was a few that got cut, right? Some cap casualties there with a Leonard Floyd or a Zadarius Smith that you wouldn't lose a compensatory pick for. So it fits right along the lines of the Niners' philosophical thinking, because we know they love compensatory picks. They love them. And they
figured it out. I mean, let's credit them for it, really.
Yeah, they've taken advantage of the system completely. And I think that's a Parag Marathe thing, because they've been doing that even pre-John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. They were doing this with Trent Baalke as well. So I do think that's credit to him. But ultimately, because of that, I do think a Leonard Floyd, a Zadarius Smith would be the one big bite at the apple, because I think that's a little bit more of a game changer. But then, a couple of fifth-round defensive tackles. I prefer Leonard Floyd of the two.
I do too. And I think you make a really good point, because there's a lot of other defensive ends that will cost you a compensatory pick, or at least will work towards the compensatory formula. What Vish just pointed out here, for people who aren't understanding the nuance, not every quote unquote free agent is in the same bucket as how when they go and put this equation together for compensatory selections. The Niners were just given 7 compensatory selections. Leonard Floyd was a salary cap casualty, as was Marcus Golden today, as was Zadarius Smith. And because of that, they're not in this equation, if I understand this correctly. And thus, you could go sign a Leonard Floyd, and it really doesn't, like you could lose Samson Ebukam, add Leonard Floyd, and wind up positive as far as you would, in my opinion, if you went from Ebukam to Floyd, you would have upgraded. But in reality, I think they would have upgraded, and they're in a positive situation compensatory pick wise. So that actually might be a way to go. Go for Leonard Floyd, let Ebukam walk, take the compensatory pick for Ebukam, and don't give one for Floyd, and you're a double winner. I think it's a no-brainer. Unless we're not seeing it completely for what it is.
No, I agree. And someone in the comments did point out, I don't think Zadarius Smith was released, but Leonard Floyd is the exact player we're talking about that fits the format. And he's quite young still, right? So you still have some upside there with him.
The guy that I want, and I was asking you the question before for this guy, Glass Half Full guy makes a donation. He says, what would the 49ers have to give up to the Tennessee Titans for Jeffrey Simmons? He seems like the perfect defensive tackle for this team. Vish, I went back and I did a video on this, and it's worth watching. I went back and I looked at all the teams that have won the Super Bowl in the last decade or so. Outside of the Patriots, Vish, every other team had 2 guys on their front 4, not front 7, their front 4, that really commanded double teams pretty consistently. Almost every year without
the Patriots would have, because they're very famous for 2-gapping with their defensive linemen, right? So a lot of those guys would have just been taking on double teams and stuff. That would have been their job, literally, to take a double team. Yeah.
But like Rams had Aaron Donald and Von Miller.
You're talking from a rusher standpoint.
I'm saying like guys that you have to combo block.
Okay.
And like outside of the Patriots, who had, more of a utility type line, everybody else has had difference makers up front. Like, you better combo block Frank Clark, and you better combo block Chris Jones. And, and to me, I'm starting to look at the 49ers defensive line, and you got to combo block Bosa, but I don't think you have to account for Armstead quite the same way as he gets a little older. And Kinlaw's not that guy, and Ebukam's not that guy. I would be all after Jeffrey Simmons. If Tennessee is really talking about shopping Derrick Henry, and they've already cut a number of good players, then the rumors that I'm hearing about Jeffrey Simmons might be true as well, and they may be shopping him. To me, this guy is a difference maker, man. And I would figure out a way to give them a future pick, whatever the deal needs to be made. That's the guy to go after. If you can put Simmons next to Armstead on the same line that has Bosa, now you're cooking with grease.
I agree with you.
You like Simmons, but you don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it's impossible. Yeah.
Probably a pipe dream.
Yeah.
There's a rumor out there today that the 49ers, well, not a rumor, there's a report out there today that the 49ers are one of the teams that went and looked at OBJ. There was a lot of speculation last year as OBJ was trying to get healthy, and there was all that talk about him going to Dallas. The Niners were sometimes mentioned. Where are you on a pursuit of OBJ? And does it matter to you? Is there anything like, I think in a lot of ways, OBJ is the perfect receiver if Trey Lance is your quarterback. Why? Because he's a great route runner. He has terrific hands. And I think he's got like Chris Carter-like ball skills. And I think if Trey is the guy, the accuracy, we don't know about, and the high-speed wobbles, you're going to need a quarterback. You're going to need some receivers that have just unbelievable ball skills, and Beckham fits that bill. But if Brock is your guy and it's not Trey, I'd rather go with what they have with Jawan Jennings and spend my cap room elsewhere. Where are you on OBJ to the Niners?
I don't even know if he's healthy.
That's
It's
another
a
one.
really weird
Yeah,
thing with his
he
knee
hasn't
this
played a lot. He's
offseason.
played
Yeah.
basically a half season the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Do you
so
like him?
that's kind
Do
that's
you
kind
like
of
OBJ?
I
Do you think?
I like him as a player, yeah, but I mean, he came off of the ACL and then he played well in that season for the Rams. He really did down the stretch. He's still a very good player. Like you said, he's an elite route runner. He's got unbelievable hands, unbelievable ball skills, and he's still got an incredible catch radius, right? For a 6-foot guy, he has long arms. He can really extend outside of his frame and catch the football. He has an incredible ability to also go up and get the ball and high point it. So he's got all of those things, but I have no clue where his health is at.
But I mean, don't you have in Jawan Jennings kind of a healthier, younger, cheaper version of OBJ? I don't see OBJ as anything more than a sticky-fingered possession receiver who could potentially be very valuable for Trey in the red zone. But I mean, you got Jawan. Jawan's got a bigger catch radius. I think Jawan's a better blocker. I think he's got pretty damn good hands. They're not OBJ hands, but they're good. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not signed yet, right? Too. He's got to sign his tender.
No,
I think he will.
No, he's back. He's back.
Did he sign his tender?
Yeah, he's back. Yeah,
he signed it. Okay, great. I think. Yeah, I agree with you there as well. I'm not necessarily in for the OBJ. I have no clue where his health is at, but you asked me if I like OBJ as a player. I did, of course. He was awesome, especially on the Giants. Like we're talking about to start his career, he was one of the best receivers of all time in terms of how he started his career, not in terms of how he ended up or where he's like whatever. He started his career amongst the best receivers of all time in terms of how he was producing.
People are weighing in on the free agency, which is coming up next week. Kittle says Leonard Floyd and Poona Ford. You need two guys. I'd be happy with that. I'd be very happy with that. Chiguayo 56 says defensive tackle like Poona Ford, Colin Saunders, the D tackle from Kansas City to anchor. Who would you rather have between? Like, if Simmons is a pipe dream, give me somebody that is going to make an impact on that defensive tackle spot that isn't a pipe dream, that's gettable, that you like, Vish. Do you like Colin Saunders from KC? Do you like Poona Ford?
Saunders.
Do you like Ashawn Robinson? Those are the names that I kind of centered on a few weeks back.
Yeah, I like Saunders. Yeah, that would
Galvin
be the guy
Tomlinson,
for me.
I think
Saunders.
you might have mentioned him at one point.
Right. But I think I like Saunders the best. He reminds me of DJ Jones in a lot of ways.
Sawed off, short guy with a little bit more quickness than you think, a little bit more pass rush than you think.
A little more explosion.
You mentioned it a few streams ago. I think it was last week. You mentioned that in the Super Bowl, there was a play to the sideline. I think it was a hitch. And somehow, some way, Colin Saunders at 6 feet, 324 pounds, got out there and made the tackle in space.
In the open field. I think it was on Jalen Hurts in the open field. It was ridiculous. Play. Yeah. It's one of the
kind
best
of play
plays
that we don't typically see from Javon Kinlaw.
No. I mean, we don't typically see that from
Yeah. It's a high-level defensive tackle play. Saunders I'm a big fan. Val Ramos just says, here's another donation just for the hell of it. Val, appreciate you, brother. We've hit a bunch of Niner topics. Give me one that you're burning on. Is there one that we didn't cover today that you're like, you know what, kind of interesting topic matter when it comes to the Niners? When the shows are on your channel, you typically lead. When they're on my channel, I typically lead. But I always like to, get great respect for you. I always like to give you an opportunity to kind of, we didn't even talk about Colton McKivitz. McKivitz gets a 2-year extension. He was scheduled to be a restricted free agent. I did a video on this on my channel yesterday, which has already gotten a couple thousand views. I like this pickup, but I'm not convinced that he's the starter at right tackle. What's your read on the McKivitz re-signing?
I predicted it to happen. I think I've said it multiple times on stream, and I said it here. Um, I said it here. I think maybe a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. They did the same exact thing with Emmanuel Mosley when he reached the end and was had that last year of restricted free agency when he was looked at as a prospective starter going into 2021. They're doing the same exact thing with Colton McKivitz, and I expect him to be the starting right tackle. I think they'll bring in competition. They'll spend some draft picks on it, but I don't think anybody's going to beat him out.
A couple of veteran edge rushers that have been linked to the Niners in the last couple of days by different media sources, not necessarily by legitimate rumors. We're just more about articles that people are suggesting names. One of them was Jadeveon Clowney. The other was the Maryland kid who's been everywhere and back now, Yannick Ngakoue. Do either one of those guys excite you as an edge rusher? And do you like one more than the other?
Yeah, I like Ngakoue better. I think Ngakoue is a hell of a player. I think he's always been underrated. I think he's an awesome pass rusher. But and if the 49ers had one bite at the apple before the Leonard Floyd situation, I was hyping that up. But now for me, when you can get Floyd, you don't lose a compensatory pick, and you get a guy who's still young and very gifted. That's who I would like them to go after.
Last topic before we let you go. We appreciate your time on this Friday night. Tayshaun Gibson, the starting free safety, is a free agent. Jimmy Ward, the starting nickel, free agent. Tarvarius Moore, the backup strong safety, free agent. Jason Verrett, who's God knows has had a world of injuries. He's an unrestricted free agent. They only have signed up in their secondary Hufanga, Charvarius, Diamador Lenore, Sammy Womack, George Odom, who's a tremendous special teamer, and Ambry Thomas, who I'm not even sure is an NFL player. Where are you on Tayshaun Gibson? Like, I like what I saw from Gibson as a productive interceptor, but I don't like Gibson in pass coverage in any kind of man scenario. To me, he's a zone safety strictly. And I don't think he's a great deep middle cover guy. And if the new DC comes in and is going to want to play predominantly cover 3, I don't know that Tayshaun, if I trust Tayshaun Gibson to cover that amount of real estate. I think they either need a converted corner or Jimmy Ward, or they need somebody. They need somebody who's a better coverage player. I know he's a productive interceptor, and that's why fans liked him and the Niners liked him instead of Jaquiski Tart. I get that. But where are you on Gibson? How important is the free safety spot more important than the nickel spot? What's your plan of attack and I didn't even mention Emmanuel Mosley. So you got Mosley, Gibson, Ward, Moore, and Verrett. You got 5 free agents on your back end. You got 7 free agents on your defensive front. We already addressed the front. Let's address the back side of the defense. Who do you want coming back? If I can give you one of those guys coming back, and who you moving on from in that secondary?
I would bring back Emmanuel Mosley. I think that's the guy to bring back. I think he would come on a 1-year kind of prove it type deal because of what happened with his injury situation. I think I've been consistent since the middle of the season that that's the one guy I would bring back. I think the nickel situation, you've spent draft picks and you've spent time developing Samuel Womack and Diamador Lenore. They fit in to just compete for that spot, in my opinion. And then ultimately, I'm not the biggest fan of just riding the safety situation back with Tayshaun Gibson. I don't think he can replicate what he did last year. I'm very skeptical of that. But let's say he does and they do want to bring him back. Even if that is the case, I think they should spend a 3rd or 4th round pick on a safety. They need somebody young there. They have not drafted one besides Tarvarius Moore, who they drafted as a corner, not even as a safety. And so because of that, I think they need to spend some real draft equity here to get a young guy, somebody to develop as a long-term starter, because Gibson, to me, is just a 1-year Band-Aid. Even if he does come back, they need somebody that has a future there that they're developing. So I would say even if they want to bring Gibson back, draft somebody with a third or fourth round pick right then and there. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Jamie Robinson from Florida State, and I like Jair Brown too from Penn State. A couple super chats before we bolt for the door. Michael Monahan says, "Great show, Larry. Love your content." Oh, thank you, man. It means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Very kind words. Jay Dizzy, 1985, which my guess is the year that Jay Dizzy may have been born. Just a guess. But he says Larry K wants to sign all the high-priced free agents to fill every hole like there's no salary cap. Jeffrey Simmons, Bates, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, McCrary. Who's McCrary? Oh, Caleb McGarry, Marcus Davenport. Sign them all. Well, you know what, Jay Dizzy? I think that's kind of true, but not also kind of false. I think I would invest in Jeffrey Simmons. I'm into, this is what I'm into. Build through the draft. That's what I'm into. Build through the draft. I only want to use free agency for the creme de la creme, the true difference makers, the guys that are just going to change the whole impact or the whole outlook of your football team. There aren't that many guys like that. Jeffrey Simmons, if he gets cut, is that guy. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is that guy. Bates, Grant and I talked about Bates. Bates is going to get paid a ton. I wouldn't pay him. That's not my guy. Davenport, I think, also gets paid a lot. That's not my guy. Caleb McGarry might be a cheaper option than Mike McGlinchey, but, probably too expensive. So of that group, I would say I want difference makers in free agency. Like Charvarius Ward. Would you agree, Vish, that Charvarius was a difference maker this year?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so Simmons, difference maker. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, difference maker. And we got this one as well. Wow. Good karma for a Super Bowl this year. Was that Scroll TV?
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
My bad. I don't know if you were getting my text or not. I had something at 7:30 Central.
Oh, no problem, dude. I'm sorry. I did not get your text.
Yeah, I was trying to chat you in the private chat, and I was trying to shoot you some text there. I didn't want to
sweat,
do this.
Bro. Hey, I'm gonna let you go. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you Tuesday, maybe on the Vish channel.
100%. Sorry about that. I didn't want to do it like this.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
We do this twice a week. We can be straight with each other. I had my phone off to the side. Normally, if it was back in my home studio, I'd have it right with me, but I have it off to the side. Vish, we'll let you go, brother. Good stuff.
All right, thank you, Larry. Sorry about that. We'll run this back with some
Tuesday night.
Without having anything going on Friday as well on your channel, so I can give my full time. Sorry, I have to go, but thank you so much and have a great rest of your night, Larry.
You too, man. Take care. The great Vish Kumaran stopping by. God, I feel bad, man. Vish is trying to get out of the room, and I'm like going on and on and on and on and on. Couple last thoughts before we get out of here. Let's see. Lee Ving, which is like that name, says Larry's pretty even-handed about who the Niners can afford. Yeah, I mean, I think the texter was right though. I am like, go get this guy, go get that guy. I'm an aggressive person that wants to see the team win the Super Bowl. So I'm always thinking big picture and trying to get the Super Bowl. Jay Dizzy says Simmons and C.J. Gardner-Johnson are all going to get paid a ton. No, you're right. All right. Jesus. You're right. Stop demanding, everybody. We got this one from Cisco. It says 1-2 Krueger is coming for you. 3-4 better hit that like button. There you go. I like that. Kind of a little bit of a Nightmare on Elm Street, but not entirely. Let's see. I'm just trying to get this one other super chat. Did I already get it, or did I miss it? Somebody here also threw a big super chat. And normally, let me see. Maybe I'll go up this way. Let's see if I can find it. Make sure that we get all of our super chats in there. There it is. Maybe I got it. Is that it? Skrull TV. Good karma for Super Bowl this year. All right. I think that was the one. If I missed it, let me go up a little bit further. Michael Monahan said, great show. Love your content. We appreciate you, Michael. Hey, one of the topics that we talked about last night on the show was that, how disappointed I am for Damon and Ratto and Kyle Madsen for losing their opportunities at 95-7 the game. And we talked about it, and it's a tough business, and it's just tough. It's just a really tough thing. D. Bruce, I noticed today, started his own YouTube channel. So D. Bruce will be joining me on the Krug Show on Monday night. So we'll do a live stream Monday night, which we wanted to maybe do it tonight, but you know what? It's Friday, and I'm sunburned and hungry and sleepy and everything. I sat out in talking stick today, and I got sunburned. But yeah, D. Bruce, Monday night, Damon Bruce is going to join me on the Krug Show, and we'll talk about all things about his career and YouTube and how he feels about losing his opportunity, and also, where he wants to go from here. I mean, career at a crossroads, but not over. Big thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being a sponsor of the show today. If you are an occupational therapist, an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, or a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice. So let's say you're playing pickup basketball tonight and you hurt your shoulder. You hurt it, it's aching, but you're not going to urgent care. You're definitely not going to the doctor. You're definitely not going to ER. And you want to somehow rehab your injury. This is a resource that you can use behind your own computer and get information about how you can rehabilitate your own injuries. Telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And here's a message right now from Telmetrics. And the title sponsor of our show is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. Check them out in Corte Madera in Marin County, open 7 days a week. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Damon and Mary, they got a great restaurant, and they work at it. That's why it's so good. It's really a phenomenal place. The brisket chili is phenomenal. You have to try the brisket chili. And here's a word from our good friends at Pig and a Pickle. And welcome back to the Krug Show. And of course, we're brought to you all week, this entire month And the next couple months, our good friends at New York Style Italian Sausage have sent us here to spring training on this trip. And that's why if you see me sunburned going, oh my God, Krug, you need a little aloe vera. Yeah, I'm a little red today for sure. But it's all courtesy of New York Style Italian Sausage. Phenomenal product. New York Style Italian Sausage is absolutely phenomenal. Whether it be the breakfast sausage or the chorizo, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, you cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. A great product without a doubt. And here's a little word from New York Style Sausage.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York Style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York Style Italian Sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed. We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. How can you go to church if you don't believe in God? And along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. It wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, that life is good.
All right, welcome back to the Krug Show. As we finish up this live stream, was in the Giants clubhouse today, talked to Alex Cobb, was sitting in there as Gabe addressed the media. We did some interviews yesterday. We'll have a lot of that content in the days ahead on the channel and, of course, on our YouTube channel, the Krug Show, right here. And we're doing some outstanding stuff. A couple last thoughts before we bolt for the door. We've got this one from Sargon. He says, I love you, Larry. Good show. Oh, Sargon, man, that's very sweet of you. Thank you very much for supporting the Krug Show. Ted Talks Ball is a good man. Ted, I know we're going to do a live stream coming up here in the next couple of weeks. He says, what about Javon Hargrave? Yeah, I think Javon Hargrave is going to be really, really expensive, but I love him. I absolutely love him. I think he would be fantastic. We have this one from Taylor Gang. Says, hey, Larry, thanks for the content. Miss most of the show. Did you guys talk about if the 49ers are going to use their picks to go up? Well, we didn't talk about trading up, but the 49ers have 7 compensatory selections, and they're going to have 11 picks overall. And I went through their list of needs, okay? Not on this live stream, but just yesterday when I was looking at their roster. And I think this is what they need. They need another quarterback, probably a third quarterback, right? We like Trey. We like Brock. They need, I think, a dynamic, another dynamic mover, whether it be a receiver, a return man, or a running back. Somebody who's a dynamic return guy, somebody who's dangerous with the ball in the open field. So that's number 2. They need a center. That's number 3. They need a right tackle. That's number 4. They need a legitimate, good second tight end. That's number 5. You have 5 needs on the offensive side of the ball. On special teams, you have Robbie Gould. That's need number 6. And, I'm not ranking these. I'm just saying I'm counting them. Now let's flip over to the defense. You badly need a defensive tackle. I just told Vish that I think it's the number one need. So that's number 7. You badly need a defensive end. That's 8. You got all kinds of guys that are free agents on your defensive line. So you probably need another rusher, whether it be an interior rusher or an outside rusher. So you need really 3 defensive linemen. You're good at linebacker, but you could always add a body there. And then you need a free safety. You need a nickel back. You could always use another corner. So you see what I'm saying? We're talking about a team that has roughly 11 picks, but they roughly have 10 to 12 needs on their roster to really be a complete championship caliber roster. So I expect in free agency, they're going to take care of 1 need, maybe 2. I don't think they're going to spend a ton in free agency. I think it's going to be more about letting players go than acquiring them. I don't necessarily see them trading all their picks. I know there'll be people that will say, well, the 49ers have 11 picks, and you'll hear this notion. 11 rookies can't make this team. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, to be honest. I think that you need to fill needs with football players, guys who can play. Whether you get them in the draft, get them after the draft, or get them in free agency, it doesn't really matter. You need to fill these holes. You need to get replacements. So, as far as if you want to trade up for a particular player, the 2 guys that I would absolutely be interested in trading up for in the draft are both Notre Dame guys. Isaiah Foskey, who played at De La Salle, is an edge rusher. He's 6'5", 260, tremendous motor, very productive football player. I think he's probably going to be a high second-round pick, maybe a mid-second-round pick. Foskey, if you really thought he was special, I think he could be a blue chipper and a tremendous player for years. The other one is Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, who's just, I think he's a combination of Gronk and Kelsey and Kittle. I think he's a star. And if Brock Purdy is the future at quarterback, what does Brock like to do? He loved to throw to the tight end at Iowa State. He's loved to throw to the tight end with the Niners. Why not go get a second big-time tight end? I don't know how it's possible because, man, it's hard to trade up into the first round. But Michael Mayer, I just look at Michael Mayer. Look at the Ravens. The Ravens, traded a pick a couple years ago and took that center from Iowa. Why? Because he was just a no-doubt, absolute plug-and-play, one of the great centers to come out of the league in the last decade and a surefire, Pro Bowl caliber offensive lineman. Very safe pick, and to me, if you're saying, what's the best way to build your football team? Well, the higher up you pick in the draft, the safer you want your picks to be. If you could parlay some of your day 2 picks into a late first round pick and you could wind up with Michael Mayer and think about it. The 49ers are a really good defensive team. Shanahan's a phenomenal play caller. They have a great bevy of offensive weapons. They just have a couple holes on offense, especially along the line they need to fill. But if you could add a difference-making tight end like Michael Mayer to what you already have, very safe pick. That to me would be the home run pick. MF says, Larry, love the Vish shows. Oh, no doubt. Vish is the man. Hendricks says, Larry, you're lazy. You're lazy. Brandon says, Larry, is there a player contract that you'd be happy to give up in a trade? I guess Javon Kinlaw, to be honest, the way he played at the end of the year, hopefully he can improve, but I'm that you're paying Kinlaw a substantial amount. The production's not there. He doesn't sack the quarterback. If Javon is not stopping the run on first and second down with consistency, I'm not seeing the value in Javon. I'm not seeing what he's given you. So I like him, and I'd love to see him, kind of fulfill his potential. But I think it's kind of stamped official right now. He's not a pass rusher. He's played whatever number of career games it is. He has like 1.5 career sacks. He's not a pass rusher. He's not an interior rusher. He's a first and second down run dominant player who got bounced around in the run game against the Eagles. So, yeah, I think that would be. MF says Lynch still believes in Kinlaw. Publicly. That would be my answer to that. Publicly, he believes in Kinlaw. I don't know about privately. We've got this one. This is kind of interesting from Hendricks. I like this kid. Zach Kuntz is a sleeper tight end. Yeah, Kuntz is a sleeper tight end. I think he played at Old Dominion, 6'8", really, really good workout numbers for a 6'8" receiver, 6'8" tight end. Yeah, absolutely. If Kuntz is there, let's say late third, early fourth, he might be the guy. He might be a guy he might be that second tight end. And that's what they really need. They need a second tight end that's big time because, and I'll tell you one guy that I really like as a movement tight end. I think he's a real sleeper is the Stanford wide receiver, Elijah Higgins, who's, goes about 6'3", 6'4", 235. He's really built more like a wide receiver, but man, Elijah Higgins is strong and fast and athletic. And then watching him at the combine, seeing his workout numbers, 7th round, but I'd be intrigued as hell in the 7th round. Cisco 1946 says, Larry, I'm telling you, Niners are going to make a splash by acquiring a solid tackle via free agency or trade. They're going to restructure our cap situation and get solid needs this year. I hope you're right. There's more than one way to build a football team for sure. MF says, why can't the Giants unlock Elliot Ramos? That's one of the interviews that I did yesterday, Elliot Ramos. And I said, Elliot, man, you got a world of potential. What's going on? Why can we not make this last step? He said that he thinks it's a lot of his struggles have been mental, that maybe it starts to snowball on him and he starts to get out of his comfort zone. But man, as far as the bat speed, the foot speed, the arm strength, it's all there. I mean, somehow, some way the Giants have to figure out a way to get some value out of Elliot Ramos. So, and Joey Bart as well. Joey Bart and Elliot Ramos they can put a charge into the baseball. These guys can send it going the other way at like 112, 115 miles an hour. There aren't that many guys on this team that can do that. Those two guys can do that. So hopefully they'll both kind of hit their second stride, hit their second wind. I get the feeling that the Giants may not even go north with Joey Bart. I mean, if you said to me, make a wager on who the Giants catchers are going to be, I would wager on Austin Wynns as the starter and Sable, the Rule 5 kid, as the number 2. Sable's more of a hitter. Sable is, he's not the catch and throw guy that Joey is, but I think he's more of a hitter. And Austin Wynns, I think, is probably the guy that Cap and the staff have the most confidence in. And that's just a guess. Nobody's said that to me. That's just a guess based on what I've seen over the last year or so, what I'm hearing. Brandon Vincent drops this one in the chat. He says, if Trey really steps up and wins the starting job and plays well to start the year, how short do you think his leash will be before Kyle goes to Brock? Brandon, that might be the $64 million question. If Trey, you don't look away from, the gift, the gift situation. If it, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you got a quarterback that you're winning with and he's playing efficient quality football, and you're winning games, I don't think you switch. And that's just my philosophy. I don't think you switch. I wouldn't have switched from Trey to Brock if Trey was balling out, and I wouldn't switch from Brock back to Trey if Brock was balling out. Now we saw, to me, there's no doubt that Brock played at a higher level thus far than what Trey has played at. So Brock's the leader in the clubhouse, but Trey, because of the injury to Brock, is going to be given an opportunity probably for at least a week, maybe a month at the beginning of the year. And if he takes advantage of that opportunity and they score in the 30s and win games, and we're seeing a Trey Lance that is clearly developed and clearly improved from what we've seen, and he's winning games and playing efficient football, I don't think he's coming out, despite the fact that Brock went, whatever it was, 6-0, 7-0, then won a couple playoff games. I think whoever the hot hand is, you stay with the hot hand. It's a long season, so you got to remember that as well. All right, that's going to do it for us. Is there anybody else? UK Tube says, were you in Cabo with Kyle? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're always hanging out. Paul Perriman says, what the heck is behind Larry's head? That's a mirror. That's a mirror. Or wait, is it? Yeah, it's a mirror. It's a mirror on the wall. And sorry, I started this live stream. It was light and there was no lights on. And now I'm sitting here in the dark. Anyway, MF says, where does Jimmy G wind up? That's a great call. It's not going to be the Carolina Panthers. I would say Jimmy G winds up. I'm going to say Houston Texans. I'm going to say the Houston Texans are going to take either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever doesn't go one, they're going to take. They're going to sign Jimmy G, and they're going to play Jimmy G this year, and they're going to try to win games as they develop Davis Mills and obviously to a lesser extent Davis Mills, but also that second pick in the draft. So if you made me guess, I'm going to say it's Bryce Young to the Texans backing up Jimmy G. Jimmy G's the starter this year in Houston. That would be my guess. G-Code Travels Vlog, POV, says thoughts on the 49ers replacement of Ryan Carthon. Was Rand the pro personnel director? I think he was. I don't know. I don't know who they're going to go with. It's an important job. It's an absolutely important job. I think the college director job's more important, but the pro director job is very, very important as well. All right. That does it for us. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to New York Style Italian Sausage. Thanks to Telmetrics. Blank says, chances we sign OBJ. I'm going to put it at 5%. 5%. I don't see it. You have Juwan Jennings, who's cheaper, healthier. I understand the need for OBJ if Trey is your starter, because I think then you really have to prioritize guys with elite ball skills. Great hands, the Chris Carters of the world, the guys who can catch anything. And OBJ's in that category. He can catch virtually anything. So if that's, if Trey is going to be your number one guy, then maybe OBJ makes sense. But if Brock is your number one guy, I'm staying with Juwan. This team had, I just read you 11 needs as I see them between the kicker, the offensive needs, the defensive needs. I've got 11 or 12 needs it's not a good time for them to start inventing needs. They don't need to invent needs. They've got real legitimate needs that need to be filled. Tommy Huxley says, don't need a receiver. Yeah. I mean, like right now, if you told me the Niners did not get a single receiver in free agency or the draft, and they came back with Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, Juwan Jennings, Debo, and Brandon Ayuk, we're cool. I'm cool with that. UK Tube says, great show, Larry. Stay safe. Diego Martinez, we don't need OBJ. Ted Talks Ball. Looking forward to Monday night. Krug and Damon Bruce. Should be good. And way to go, Damon. He's not gonna cry. He's not gonna sit in the corner, bury his head. He's gonna get off his butt, and he's gonna go on to the next thing. And that's what you do. So I'm proud of him. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Vish for being very, very patient. And once again, I gotta apologize to Vish. I'll apologize on Tuesday. He was sending me notes like, dude, I gotta go. I gotta do this at this time, and I'm like sitting here just talking, not noticing at all. We got this one. Brandon Vincent, would Gary Radnich ever come on your show? Does he know YouTube exists? I would say yes and yes. That's what I would say. But I don't know for sure. I can always extend the invite. But Gary's a very private guy. The one thing about Gary, I think, and I know Gary well. I feel like I know him well. I worked with him for 10 plus years sitting an arm's distance away. When he walked away from radio, he wanted to go away on his own terms. And part of his own terms were, I ain't going to be the guy hanging out in the press box with a hot dog in my back pocket. I'm not going to be sitting there hoping, wishing, and, for some second act that ain't coming. You know what I mean? So he wanted to, Gary's very much of a man who wants to live life on his own terms. And those were his terms. And he said to me many times, Lair, when I'm done, I'm done. I ain't coming back for this or that or this or that. But you know what? You know how much I love him, and I know how much you guys love him. And I will extend an invite to him because I think everybody would love to hear from G-Rad. And I would too. I absolutely would. MF says Gary and Damon have beef. Nah. No beef there. That was overblown. Really overblown. Both guys totally professional. Gary didn't have any real problem with D. Bruce. D. Bruce had no real problem with Gary. I don't think Gary wanted to work with Damon. Simple as that. Diego says, Larry, you want to stay after 5 tries trying to leave. LOL. That's true. Cisco, great show, Larry. You don't need to apologize to Vish. Legends recognize legends. Man, anybody calls me a legend, I'm always thinking, you're just saying I'm old. MF, I miss Gary and Larry. Best listen in my college years. Yeah, man, we had a lot of fun. I don't think I ever had more fun than just sitting there with G-Rad and just laughing. We'd walk in from the garage laughing. We'd walk back to the garage laughing. We had a good time. We had a really, really good time. We got this one from Val Ramos. Will Sable beat out Joey Bart for the number 1 catcher job? I think so. I can't believe I'm saying it. But yeah, I think Sable's a Rule 5 guy, so he has to make the roster. And I think he's going to. And then I think Austin Wynns is going to make the roster too. So unless they carry 3 catchers, I think it's Austin Wynns and Sable. And Joey's going back to AAA, or maybe he gets dealt. That's just my sense of it. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Paul Perriman. I've been listening to Larry since KMBR at night. Oh, look at you. That right there is worth a clap. Thank you very much, sir. Brandon Vincent. Shout out Salty Balty. Yeah, the late RIP Salty Balty. MF says, and Kate Scott. Don't forget Kate. We love Kate. MF says, I miss Joe Hughes. Look at that. Shout out for Joe Hughes. Didn't think we'd receive that tonight. All right, good stuff. Thanks to everybody, and we'll do more live streams from Arizona tomorrow. I got to go get some aloe on my face. I'm a little sunburned, and spent a lot of time on the berm today at Talking Stick. So, but anyway, until next time, we're out. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of you, and until next time, have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to